Hello students, my name is Gaurav Bansal and here we are going to start with the series Concept Building through PYQs, previous year questions. So here we look at a question from the past year and from that question we try to build up a concept that how this question is linked to certain concept, what are the major aspects of that concept, how much is the weightage of that concept and what are some of the other probable questions from that. How do you prepare for that concept? So we try to map question to the syllabus. Let us look at the question now. The topic that we have picked up today is infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of the most, I would say, regularly asked topic. If you look at the last 10 years, in total, around 11 to 12 questions have been asked. So there was a time when two questions were coming from the infrastructure topic, and then eventually it became to a regular occurrence of one question on infrastructure. So infrastructure has 3-4 major dimensions from which different questions can be asked. I will discuss all of these and will also first look at the question. So this is our question. This question was asked recently in 2021 only. Investment in infrastructure is essential for more rapid and inclusive economic growth. Discuss in light of India's experience. Now, here the concept is the role of investment and infrastructure in the economy. Okay? So, let us look at the question again. Investment in infrastructure is essential. So, if you just look at half of this statement, it says infrastructure is essential. We cannot grow or we should not make a growth plan without the plan for infrastructure investments. So investment is essential definitely, but within that, in infrastructure, it is absolutely required. Now, what are the outcomes? The question says for more rapid and inclusive growth, and that is what we need to establish. So we need to establish that infrastructure has impact on growth. We need to establish that infrastructure also has impact on inclusiveness. So second part, the inclusive economic growth requires you to think a little more, whereas the first part is very clear. Rapid growth, all of us understand the infrastructure sector contributes. Okay, so we have to talk about India's recent experience. Okay, how it has helped India. So we have to give some specific example, then only we can justify that question. Now, concept as we have said, role of investment in the economy and infrastructure and inclusive growth. So these are the two broader concepts that are mapped through this question. Although there are other concepts also which can be asked in the infrastructure sector, I will cover that also. But first let us answer this question. So first of all, in general you talk about importance of the investment. Do not straight away jump to infrastructure. First you start with investment. That investment is necessary for growth. According to Harrod-Domer model, there is direct relationship between investment and growth. It is not only direct but also proportionate. Okay, so these are directly proportional to each other. Yes. So we know that growth is equal to investment divided by ICOR. Okay. So investment itself leads to rapid growth. Investment itself is leading to growth. That is without any doubt. This is one of the most well-known equations in the economics. This is modified and simplified version of the Harrod-Domer model. Okay. So Harrod-Domer model is not for optional. Even in GS you should know the Harrod-Domer model. So you can refer to that model, or even if you do not refer that, if you just mention that growth has a direct and proportional impact with investment, then also it is enough. If you do not want to mention equation, it's okay. But if you write heteronomer, fine. If you write this equation, good. Okay. So investment has a positive impact on economic growth. If everything is same, just we increase the investment anywhere, it leads to more growth. So investment itself leads to growth. Now, what is special about infrastructure? Now, in the second part of the answer, you talk about that. Just give me 1 second, please. Yes. Now, impact of investment. Okay. So now we talk about specifically the infrastructure, the impact of investment in infrastructure. So investment itself leads to growth. Your first 2 to 3 lines should be about that. Then you come to infrastructure very specifically because rest of the answer has to be about infrastructure. So here you talk about that. However, when we invest in infrastructure, we are not only encouraging economic growth through that activity, but it also has spillover effects. So you should use this term spillover effects. Spillover. This is also called positive externalities. Okay. If you can mention positive externality, that is also a good term. So you should mention that it has spillover. What does it mean? That if we made investment in infrastructure, automatically industry benefits, industrial growth increases, agriculture growth increases. You look at any sector, you talk about trade, trade improves. Okay? So, for example, if we have better roads, automatically industry gets a boost. Its transportation cost come down, transportation time comes down. So everything helps industry in that manner. Okay. So infrastructure makes it easy for everyone else in life. So whether it is transport, whether we talk about roads, shipping. Okay, if shipping is good, then we can export more competitively. So you should give about 2 to 3 such small examples. Communication, if that improves, it improves the trade, it improves the working efficiency and everything. So communication is also important. Most important is transport, definitely, but communication is also very important. Power, all of these are infrastructure. So all of them have definite and very strong spillover effect on every other sector. That you should talk about. So here, if we invest in infrastructure, not only we have growth from that activity, but it also encourages other activities. So growth is there, but it is very rapid growth because it is also encouraging growth in other. Now your half of the answer is complete, where you have justified the rapid growth part. Okay, so just look at step by step how we are going ahead. हमने growth की बात की. We talked about growth, that investment itself leads to growth. We didn't talk about infrastructure first, but when we make that investment in infrastructure, that growth is rapid. Now we justify that adjective also. Now you come to the second part, that its impact on inclusiveness. Okay, generally inclusiveness is not something that people talk about, but infrastructure definitely has very strong impact. So here you have to give some examples, right? For example, that if infrastructure is better, women participation in education, labor force improves. If good public transport is available, again it improves women participation in public life, economy. Okay, and not just women, disabled people, old people, everyone gets supported. Okay? So our public transport should be good. If people have comfortable buses to travel, if they get good services, regular services close to their home, a lot of people can go to work very easily. If they have to make a lot of effort in order to just reach their place of work, then a lot of people will not be able to work. They will become dependent. Similarly, women's safety also improves if your highways are well lit, streets are well lit, okay, if they're all illuminated, lighted. Okay? So, in that sense, we are talking about, and it's not just about this. It also encourage the protection of environment also as well. If there is better infrastructure, then people spend less time in commute. They keep their cars on for lesser time. Carbon emissions also reduce in long run. Clear? So, for example, if I go from Delhi to Shimla, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it would take easily about 8 hours, 9 hours, okay? 4 hours to Chandigarh, and from Chandigarh, 4 hours to Shimla. That was the rough time required to reach there. And if you get a traffic jam, if you're stuck somewhere, then it would be added. Today, if we go from Delhi to Shimla, from Delhi to Chandigarh, it takes 2.5 hours, 3 hours maybe. Okay, not in the current situation right now. The northern border of Delhi is sealed, but in general, it takes 2.5 hours to reach Panchkula. Okay, and then another 2.5 hours to reach Shimla from. So what you could do in 8 hours, now you can do in 5 hours. Think about it. All the cars that are traveling from here and there, they are now turned off for 3 hours. They have to travel for lesser time. Plus, in traffic jam, when you drive, then you emit higher carbon. Okay, then there is more load on the engine. It consumes more oil. In that sense, also it is environment friendly. Infrastructure investments are made. If transportation fuel requirement reduces, time improves, it has definite impact on environment. That encourages the, what does it encourage? It encourages the sustainable development. Sustainable development is not asked here, but you can briefly give a reference to it. That it not only encourages inclusiveness but also sustainable development. The remote villages are called remote because they do not have infrastructure connectivity. If we invest in infrastructure, the remote places will no longer be remote. There will be much balanced regional growth also. This is also a step towards inclusiveness. The rural urban gap will also reduce due to better infrastructure. So, in all that sense, you talk about the social impacts of infrastructure. So, environment is one small perspective, although I explained it little more, but in the answer you just mentioned one or two lines about it, and you talk little more about the inclusiveness. Okay, rural urban divide, the remote villages, tribal areas, all of that get improvement if they are well connected with the mainstream. Clear? So northeast of India was almost ignored for such a long time. Unfortunately, why? Due to poor connectivity. Now, when connectivity with Northeast has improved a lot in recent few years or last few decades, we can see a lot of Northeast people around us. They are integrating into the mainstream. This will also reduce prejudices against them. This is also reduce the exotic factor around certain people. Okay, see, I'm not trying to justify anything, but I'm just trying to say a bit that if you live in traditional type of communities where you do not see too many migrants, if you do not see too many people from faraway areas, then you are likely to be a bit more racist. Then you are likely to treat foreigners either with some exoticism, that you look at them, stare at them, and you just notice their presence too much compared to other people. So people feel as if their privateness, they are being invaded, or people feel unease with that. So Northeast people, when they used to travel to other parts of India 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, people in other parts had a sense of exoticness or sometimes, unfortunately, racism also towards them. So that also is reduced by better connectivity. That is also a step towards inclusiveness. Okay? So if This answer doesn't give you scope to go into that much dimension, but I'm telling you even that much extent you can take your answers, but this is not society. If question on connectivity infrastructure is asked in paper 1, there you can go in those dimensions. Here, let us keep it short and let us wind up the answer. So, in the social impact, you talk about rural-urban divide, you talk about the remoteness, how the remoteness itself will be removed. There will not be a thing called remote village, because if it is well connected, it is not a remote village. Infrastructure improvement alone will remove all this all this remoteness in the country. Okay, that is there. Then women safety, okay, women participation. So all of those are social impact, and these encourage inclusiveness. So this is what you talk about. Then, although question doesn't ask you, very briefly you can talk about national integration and security. So again, people becoming part of mainstream, people traveling here and there very easily, that also encourages integration. Then national integration is also improved by the easier movement of armed forces, easier movement of security forces, disaster management teams. So all of that also improves the national security, internal security. So that also is a dimension you can just touch up. See, if whatever question is asked, that you have to spend most of your time on. But one or two lines, you can always add extra if there is a scope on something which is related to that. That would be an extra point. So do not keep it too much detailed. Keep it short. Okay. Extra points should not be detailed. What is asked should be detailed. Now let us wind it up. So here you have answered the national security dimension also, and with that, basically we have covered both the aspect rapidness in economic growth and inclusiveness also. Now, what is India's experience? Because the question has asked you that. Look at the question again. Discuss in the light of India's experience. So, in that context, you can use that example of northeast of India. That northeast of India has experienced better growth due to improved connectivity. Okay. Then the tourism footfall and average income in Andaman and Nicobar has improved because of better connectivity through air. Okay. Then in many other parts also there has been a lot of improvements like that. In all those areas where public transport has improved, where metro has started, women participation in public life has improved. So these are a lot of good examples that you can use here. Okay. If your communication system, transport system is trustworthy, people will be tension free to spend time, not spend time, sorry, to travel even at late hours. Okay? So that is also important. So in that sense, you can answer this. So I hope this is clear. Now let us come to the broader topic of infrastructure. Today we discuss the infrastructure overall, infrastructure impact on the country, infrastructure impact on its economy, society, national security. So right now we are talking about the role of infrastructure in the economy. But then there is another topic which is very important in infrastructure, and that has been asked also, that is PPP, public-private partnership. There they can ask you about the public-private partnership models, the agreements, the difficulties, the issues. Okay. So for example, there was one such question in 2020. Okay, that how the agreement should be between the private and public entity. Then there can be a question on the different types of agreement, for example, HAM, hybrid annual annuity model, then EPC, okay, then of course BOT. So they can ask you the comparison between them. So that is another dimension, the PPP model. Then there is one more dimension to infrastructure. Okay, apart from PPP, they can ask you very specifically about railway. They can ask you very specifically about airways. They can ask very specifically about shipping, because these are very big sectors, and regarding them, lot of developments have taken place. So these are very big topics which require a question on their own, which can warrant a question on their own. There's a lot of content to talk about on them, particularly the role of shipping in international trade. Okay, question will not be just on the shipping. They will ask you the linkage with the international trade. So it will be interdisciplinary most likely. Similarly, they can ask you about the power sector and industry. So when they will ask you specifically on one sector in infrastructure, it will not be a complete question on that. If such a question comes, it will be linked to another topic in the syllabus, whether it is industry linked with power or energy, whether it is international trade and energy security, whether it is international trade and shipping, okay, whether it is tourism and airlines. So in that manner, there can be lot of question on infrastructure. So these are all different types of probable question. Then they can ask you interdisciplinary question between the international relations and energy security and infrastructure. These three can also be linked. So in that sense, there are a lot of possible dimensions. I'm giving you some probable questions here, okay, on the broader topic of infrastructure, independent questions for infrastructure. Why is infrastructure considered as the lifeline of the modern economy? Most should not be there. As the lifeline of modern economy, analyze its impact on other sectors. So I discussed with you that how with power improvement, industrial performance will improve. With the better transport, their transportation time, costs will come down. This has impact on everything else. So in that sense, you can talk about different sectors, agriculture, industry. Okay? So you have to emphasize that. And why it is the lifeline of modern economy? Very easy to explain. Okay, if transportation shutdowns even for a brief time, it affects everything else. Okay, for example, during COVID lockdowns, there was a problem regarding the movement of people. Okay, and that is why public transport was shut down for certain period. Curfews were imposed, and how much impact that had on economy? Absolute negative impact. So infrastructure is definitely lifeline. Without infrastructure, nothing else can work. It empowers everything else. So you can use example of lockdowns. You can use some of the other example. That is, for example, think about businesses in Punjab right now, as the borders from Punjab are sealed due to ongoing farmer protest or the struggle. The businessman industry in Punjab is also suffering a lot. So those people suffer because they cannot get raw material from outside and cannot send their material outside, cannot sell their finished product outside. Units operating within the states perhaps can manage right now, but units which have a very strong relationship with other units outside the state, they have a great degree of difficulty. So all of that is being in problem right now. So that you can talk about that if just the road connectivity shuts down, how much impact it can have. Okay? Power, definitely. So very easy to answer by the way. Now, next question. Discuss the impact of infrastructure on national integration and internal security. So in this manner also they can ask you independent question which is integrated between the topic of Indian economy and internal security. Both are paper 3. So they can definitely ask you this in paper 3. Infrastructure linked with internal security. Okay? So here you can talk about how the easy movement of armed forces, how the easy movement of disaster management teams, how the, let us say, upgradation of the military infrastructure, how much is critical, how that is critical for national security. Similarly, espionage network, similarly our spy infrastructure, okay, that also improves with investment in space infrastructure. Satellites are also part of infrastructure by the way. So that is also essential for espionage. No powerful country can manage without a strong espionage team. Espionage may not be very ethical, but then the world is also not very ethical. We have to operate by the rules of the world. If there is war in the world, we should be prepared for the war. War is bad, but we maintain armed forces also to prevent those wars, to stop those wars in remote corners at borders of the country. Do not allow foreigners to invade the country deep within. So, the point is that espionage may be immoral but is absolute necessity. Okay? You need it in order to preempt the move made by your enemies. So, anyways, you got the point. So, there are a lot of points that can be discussed in this context. Okay, you can talk individually about the transportation. Okay, you can talk individually about the energy security and its role in internal security. You can talk about the national integration. Okay, so all of that is very valid question. So with this, I've given you two probable questions specifically, but I've given you many ideas in which different questions can be asked. Okay? So I hope you've got some insights into the topic of infrastructure, how to prepare for it, what are the different dimensions that can be covered in examination by the examiner, which you need to study. So with this, I hope you have got some understanding, and we are winding up this session. There will be another session with a new topic. So we'll keep meeting regularly with such sessions. Thank you.